everybody. Welcome to Around the Nation, right here to TYT Nation. Hey, it's Casual Friday. So, we're relaxing a little bit. We still have some very important stories to do in the show, but we're going to end the day on a fun note. We've got some great stories lined up for you today, and we're going to talk about some very important stuff, some a little light at the end, so stick with me. A lot of stuff to go over, of course. A lot of important breaking news on this Friday. So, before I go down the breakdown of what stories we've got today, I do want to thank the patrons. Patreon.com/TYTNation. Patrons, thank you so much for supporting the show. You can be a patron too, which, of course, goes to help fund the show and keep us on the air, independent and corporate sponsored free. So, if you like independent progressive media, Patreon.com/TYTNation. I'm not saying anything, except I just said it. So, anyway, thank you to the patrons who make this show happen. And everybody else as well who watches the show, who shares our videos. In fact, if you guys could share the stream, definitely appreciate it. And that's always helpful. Sharing is caring. And so, thank you for that. So what we have in the breakdown today, and by the way, it is Casual Friday. So what we're going to do later is we're going to take some audience questions over Skype. We're, allow people to call in, ask a question, leave a comment on some of the stuff. The number is 989-796-4975 or TYT Nation on Skype. So I'll let you guys know when we're going to take some calls. We will take a few from the audience during the show. So call in. Anyway, and not now, but call in later on when I open it up. So, stories that we have today. An update to the Jewish bomb threats. I reported a couple of days ago that there were there's been an increasing number of bomb threats against Jewish community centers. The FBI now has a suspect that has been arrested in this. So we're going to break that down, let you know who it is, and why there's a huge controversy now over what's going on, and I will break that down. Then we have Mike Pence. We're going to be talking about the emails. We've got an email story. Isn't everybody sick of the damn emails by now? But I know I am, but it is important news, so we're going to talk about that. Then we've got a good story to talk about involving cheaper drugs. That's always cool. And then we've got Democrats against the minimum wage. What the hell is going on there? I'm going to break that story down as well for you guys. And then we're going to have a fun story. We're going to talk about a Fitbit for your day. I kid you not. So, again, this is Friday. We're going to have a little fun here. We're going to end out the week and enjoy ourselves. So, all right. Anyway, so let's start out with top story of the day. The Jewish, the threats against the Jewish community centers. A suspect has been found and arrested for some of the bomb threats against Jewish community centers. Now, of course, I previously reported that there have been a lot of anti-Semitic attacks, bomb threats, vandalism of Jewish cemeteries, places like Missouri, Pennsylvania, and most recently in upstate New York. Now, in total, there have been about 100 different incidents across dozens of states. And this is according to the Jewish Community Center Association of North America. They go through, they track, okay, this is how many threats that we get. Isn't that amazing, though? I mean, the fact that we are still getting, like, Jewish community centers are still being threatened here in America or anywhere else. It's crazy. But there is this level of anti-Semitism that's going around. Now, last month, for example, a bomb threat was called into the Anti-Defamation League's headquarters in New York. Now, look, I support the mission of the Anti-Defamation League. I did call them out when they were smearing Keith Ellison as being anti-Semitic. No, the guy's not anti-Semitic. Yes, he said some controversial things. Then he took it back. He's like, yeah, you know what? I was young, and I was misinformed, and I don't agree with that anymore. So I clashed with the Anti-Defamation League on that one. But still, people are threatening them with bomb threats. It's one thing to disagree with something that they say. It's a completely other thing to threaten them or any Jewish community centers. So there's your context, right? Now, going on to today, the Washington Post has reported that the FBI has arrested a man, Juan Thompson, a 31-year-old St. Louis resident, on a Friday morning. So this morning it happened as the day that we're filming. Now Thompson, they write, is a disgraced, I added that, journalist who was fired from The Intercept for fabricating quotes and misleading colleagues in order to cover his tracks. So he worked at The Intercept, which is the news publication that, I tend to trust. Okay, I use The Intercept as a source, so I've talked about their stuff, I've talked about their stories. I have great respect for Glenn Greenwald and a lot of the people there, Lee Fong, of course. So seeing this, holy shit. Somebody who worked there. Now, he worked there, he fabricated quotes. He was actually fired last year. Okay, gone. As soon as they found out that he was doing this, that he was making up quotes, and one of the most famous ones was in a story that that Thompson wrote about Dylan Roof, of course, Christian domestic terrorist, the white right-wing terrorist that shot 9 people at a historically black church, the A&E Emmanuel Church. Okay, so in this article, he basically had some quotes from somebody named Scott Roof, which is the supposed cousin of Dylan Roof, saying something like, "Oh yeah, you know what? It was a black guy that came and stole the girlfriend, and that's why Dylan Roof did it." Again, that's one of those misattributed quotes. That didn't actually happen. There is no such person as Scott Roof. And the Intercept followed up on that and like, hey man, that guy doesn't exist. What are you doing? Well, you were coming up with terrible, that untrue quotes. No, we got to get you out of here. You're fired. You're fired. You're fired. Get out. Get out. Get out. And he later on tried to work at Raw Story. And when they found out that he had lied to the Intercept and that he did what he did, they found out his past, they're like, you get out of here, man. We don't have any room for you. You're going to make up things. You're going to make up fake news. You're gone. So there you go. Now, again, in an editor's note last year, The Intercept said Thompson had engaged in a pattern of deception and wrote that he created fake email accounts to impersonate other people, to impersonate sources. So in effect, Thompson was creating fake news. Fake news. So, and when they found out, obviously fired. Rightly so. Get him out of here. Get him out of here. Get him out of here. And see, that's kind of the difference between right-leaning publications and left-leaning publications. If you get caught creating fake news as a progressive, or somebody who's actually interested in facts and truth, you get fired. Now, on the right, if you get caught creating fake news, well, you might end up becoming White House chief strategist, or being a celebrated news source on the right, like Drudge, Breitbart, etc. Now, Charlotte Greensit, The Intercept's managing editor, said in a statement on Friday about this. She says that, quote, we were horrified to learn that this morning that Juan Thompson, a former employee of The Intercept, has been arrested in connection with bomb threats against the ADL and multiple Jewish community centers, in addition to cyber stalking. She says these actions are heinous and should be fully investigated and prosecuted. And there's no question here. Yeah, if he actually did this, throw the book at him. Nobody is going to fight against that. Yeah, of course. The guy lied, made up sources, and then he called in bomb threats. Book meet face. Okay? Throw the book at him. Throw the library at him on this one, because that's unacceptable. Unacceptable. Now, anti-Semitism in any form for any reason is unacceptable. Doesn't matter who's doing it. Okay? Now, Green said Thompson worked there from November of 2014 until he was fired in January 2016. That's when they found it. Now, here's where things get fascinating. See, now, of course, there are some Trump supporters. You go up on Twitter, right? There are Trump supporters that are like, see, Donald Trump was 100% right. The Democrats, the Democratic Party is working together to try to make Trump look bad on this specific issue. That's a little bit of a stretch. Not necessarily incorrect, but to involve the Democratic Party in this? No. Stretch. The Post explains, Thompson was charged with cyberstalking for allegedly communicating at least 8 threats to these Jewish community centers as part of a sustained campaign of harassment targeting a specific woman. Now, wait a minute here. So this whole thing is over a woman? It's over a woman. Come on. The woman said that the woman in Thompson, the Post says, has been in a romantic relationship, and after their relationship ended, he began sending defamatory emails and faxes to her workplace, making false reports of criminal activity by her, and making threats to the Jewish centers in her name. Authorities also said that some of his threats were made in his own name, to try and show that the woman was trying to frame him. Oh, see, here's a brilliant idea. I'm going to call it a bomb threat into the Jewish center. Again, that's not a brilliant idea. That's a terrible idea. That's a ridiculous idea. But again, this is his warped mind. This is how it's going to work. I call him in and I do it in her name. But then I do it in my own name. And then I can say, I've been framed, everybody. I'm the victim here. No, the victim of the people that you scared the shit out of at those centers, making them think that they could literally die from a bombing. No, it's a sick individual. It's a sick individual, man. No. But, okay, so again, disgusting human being, right? So is this political? No. I'd argue that in the context of knowing why this person did it, I'm not even sure it's anti-Semitic. This is a douchebag who has been dumped and getting revenge on an ex. That's what this boils down to. It's complete insanity. The criminal complaint filed in federal court points to a Twitter page where he rails on his ex-girlfriend as a nasty, racist white girl. In one tweet, Thompson accused a woman of harassing and threatening him before saying she had framed him for a bomb threat to a Jewish community center. Now, this is one fucked up dude, but it gets worse. Thompson's page also expresses disdain for President Trump and white people generally. Now, look, you all know me. I ain't no fan of Trump. But fuck you, buddy. You're going to hate on white people? Fuck you. Look, just because you had a bad experience with a white girl doesn't mean that all white people are shit. And look, just because a black guy does something shitty does not mean that all black people are shit. No, people are people. And people do shitty things. People are people. You understand that? So if you want to hate white people for what one white person does, fuck you. If you want to hate black people or all black people for what one black person does, fuck you. If you want to hate all Mexicans for what one Mexican does, fuck you. Okay? People are people. Fuck you. Now, here's where I issue a little apology to Mr. Trump. Now, Trump in his joint address speech to Congress said that these threats against Jewish centers were absolutely reprehensible. Yes, they are. He came out. He's denounced them. He's denounced them twice. Got to give him some credit for that. Now, he also said that sometimes it's a reverse. Now, I remember doing a segment where I said that's untrue. Well, it turns out I was wrong. Now, he said last month that some bigoted sentiments were expressed by opponents, and he said, quote, "It won't be my people, but it will be done to make his supporters look bad." And in this case, that seems to be partly true. Now, this situation explicitly wasn't, as I explained, this was a revenge tactic, okay? Was it meant to make Trump look bad? Not necessarily. This was made to make his ex-girlfriend look bad. Now, it just happens to be a convenient cover that you could blame some of the supporters of Donald Trump. So what we know here is Thompson called in these bomb threats to frame his ex-girlfriend. Not necessarily political in nature. Again, if this is a revenge thing by framing somebody for doing one of the worst, most heinous things that you can do. Call in bomb threats against someone else, especially a minority that's has a history of having attacks specifically against them for who they are and what they believe. Now, what does make it political is that he was a journalist and a supporter of the Democratic Party. Okay, those are facts. So look, what he does is that he does this. He wants her to get the blame, or if the blame somehow goes to Trump or white people in general, he wins. He gets his revenge. It's absolutely sickening. This guy's a piece of shit and a disgusting person. And now just because this guy got arrested for doing these threats, there still doesn't mean that there hasn't been a rise of anti-Semitism from the far right. For example, they still have not found who vandalized the headstones in Missouri or New York. The complaint against him does not mention any of the cemetery vandalism, nor does it tie him to it. So somebody out there is still knocking over these headstones. Somebody out there is still actually making these attacks. So we need to find out who they are. There are other people out there still doing anti-Semitic attacks. In fact, they're calling this a copycat attack, which means he saw these people doing anti-Semitic attacks and was like, hey, you know what? I can use this as my revenge plot. And then I get away with it because look at me. I'm a black Democrat. Who's going to blame me? But it turns out, of course, facts matter. And this time, great investigation into finding who this is. Because I don't want people like out there doing this kind of shit. It's heinous. It's disgusting. Now, this also doesn't mean, Trump supporters, that I'm wrong in saying that there isn't a tiny piece of that base that does hold some of these anti-Semitic views. Now, you have people like Richard Spencer and David Duke. Okay? These are people, yes, Trump has denounced these people. But that doesn't mean they don't like some of his policies. Policies like the temporary Muslim ban. Or policies like building a wall between us and Mexico. So, there's that. And the fact that it's there, I mean, you can point to it. You can point to these people. And yes, there are people that overgeneralize and try to paint the entirety of Trump supporters as anti-Semites. That's not true. The majority of Trump supporters, and I know I'm going to get flagged from the left from doing this, for saying this, but most of them aren't racist people. Most of them are not anti-Semitic people. You go out and talk to regular people. I got family that's Trump supporters. There's not a racist bone in their body. Yes, they say things that annoy me, you know, and about, you know, issues like immigration. But what it comes down to is more of a place of, I'm afraid. I'm afraid because I keep getting told that other people are coming to hurt me and my family. I don't want that to happen. In a weird place, it's more of, I want to protect my family. And again, this comes from talking to certain people about certain issues. Is it overt racism? No. What it is, I mean, these people aren't putting on Klan hoods. What they are is that they're using stereotypes that they are fed. And there is this implicit bias that people have towards other races. And I've talked about that before. But what I'm trying to say is that, yes, there is, though the majority of Trump supporters are not racist, they're not anti-Semitic, they're not sexist, etc., there is that small group within them that do those types of things. So it is easy or easier to point to that and say, look at all those Trump supporters. They're all racist. Not true. Not true. Especially people on the Democratic, the establishment media. They certainly try to point at that so they can avoid talking about progressive issues. Oh, look at the racists over there. See, compared to them, we're fine. Even though we support neoliberal policies that are crushing your jobs. No problem here. Now, This one, this specific instance, the people that were blaming Trump, including myself, we were wrong about these specific attacks. And when you know what you do when you're wrong? You own up to it. You own up to it. Look, you got to remember here that not everything is what it appears to be. That's why we need investigations. That's why we need facts. That's why we always have to make sure to take stories with a grain of salt and try to do the research and try to do the best you can at determining the facts. Because at the end of the day, those are what matter the most. Okay. All right. So let's talk about Mike Pence. This is another story where I'm going to get deep into some nuance, and of course, establishment Democrats are going to get very, very mad at me. Seems to be a theme lately. New reports came out where Mike Pence reportedly had once used a private email address to conduct official state business while he was the governor of Indiana. Oops. Now, this is according to public records requests. Now, Pence had reportedly used the account to communicate with advisors about issues, including Homeland Security in Indiana and the security of the gates of the governor's mansion. Now, this is according to reporting. The Indianapolis Star, what they did is that they filed an open records request, and now they have about 29 pages of email records from the current governor. The current governor's office. So these were Pence emails. Now, under Indiana law, public officials are allowed to use their personal email accounts, and the practice can help them avoid using official accounts to conduct political business. Now, the Star notes the law is generally interpreted to require public officials to save any of their emails, so that to save the emails that are related to official public business, in order to follow these open records laws. So you got to save those. Now, a Pence spokesman said he complied with that requirement. So what's going on here is that these emails, keeping them, is legal under Indiana law. You can use your private email address as long as you keep them, as long as you have the records here that you can show. Now, it's not the same, obviously, as Hillary Clinton. So that's what everybody keeps going to. They keep going to, no, Hillary Clinton, but what about Hillary? What about Hillary's email? Calm down, neoliberals. It's not quite the same, although there are some parallels here, and I'm going to kind of address those. Now, when it comes to private email servers, and when it comes to private email itself through services such as Gmail or Hotmail or Outlook or whatever, in this case, AOL, AOL, LOL, I'm not a fan. I used to use the discs as like frisbees. So anyway, look, when you use a public, or I should say a private email through one of these servers or services, it's not as secure. And this is one of the problems that I had with Clinton's email server. And look, she was reportedly hacked at one point, and we don't know if that's entirely true, but there are reports saying that she might have been hacked. Her server might have been hacked at some point. And that's because, of course, private email accounts, they are less secure. They're less secure than government accounts, and are usually not preserved for use in public records in quite the same way. So it is a little bit more difficult to go and get some of these email records. So that's another problem. Now, speaking of hacking, Pence's email was hacked. The report says Pence's account was compromised by a standard phishing attack in late spring of 2016. And this is according to Trump administration official. The breach became public knowledge when everyone in his contact list received emails claiming that the governor and his wife were stranded in the Philippines and needed to be wired money. Isn't that funny? Oh, we're stranded in the Philippines. We need you to send cash. We need you to send cash now. But wait, doesn't Pence have the money? And nobody sent money, too, by the way. So, very interesting. But speaking of phishing attacks, right? Because that's how we got attacked. Well, that's also how the DNC got hacked. Remember, Tony Podesta was hacked because he clicked on a phishing scam, and that's how they got into the DNC servers. Whoever did it got into the DNC servers and allowed them to steal all of those emails, which then, of course, WikiLeaks got a hold of and then released. So, and AOL, man, really? AOL? Now, when Pence's account was compromised, as soon as he found out, he shut it down and switched to a more secure system. Thank goodness. And then to another when he took on a national role. So if he's using a secure email account, that's great. That's what we want him to do. Now, responding to reports about the personal email account, the Vice President's press secretary, Mark Lauder, issued a statement saying, well, this is just like what other governors had done. And that's actually true. Now, he also says Pence maintained a state email account and a personal email account. But again, he was using his personal email account to send official state business, and that's a no-no. Now, addressing the question of where those emails are now, Lauder says that he's prepared to work in Washington. Pence had directed outside counsel to review all of his communications and ensure that all state-related emails are being transferred and properly archived by the state. So, look, again, this is why, and I said the same thing about Clinton, you don't use a personal email server or a personal email account to handle official state or national business. Now, was there anything classified in this? I don't know. I hope not. Nothing that's really high intelligence or basically anything that's classified. We don't know. Normally, people on the state level don't get access to national security stuff, for the most part. Though some of the articles do note that some of Pence's emails were deemed a little too sensitive to be released as part of the STAR's public record request. So there was some sensitive details in there. We don't know quite what those are. Furthermore, security experts told the paper that hackers were likely to be able to access Pence's inbox and send emails, which could have included those same sensitive documents. Now, I don't know, again, what's in them. I don't know if they were classified. But again, that's the reason that you don't use a private email or a private email server, because it's just not secure. It's like these politicians don't seem to understand technology. Oh, sure, yeah, my Hotmail, that's going to be fine. State business? No problem. Nobody's going to hack into me. No, people will hack into you. Now, it's not like that Mike Pence was targeted. No, it's just one of the things when you have a standard email services is that some people will send out massive phishing attacks and they'll reel people in. And that's what happened here. It's not somebody targeting Mike Pence because, I gotta take out Mike Pence. No, like I get phishing emails. All my different email accounts. It's just kind of standard with having a private email through one of these services. I keep calling it a public, but really I think of it as public, having a Hotmail or something like that. But yeah, government is what I mean. Government is more of your private email, but that's what I think of. But anyway, and here's another thing that kind of bothers me. Companies like AOL, they're private corporations. Why are you going to do government do government business using their servers? Because that's where these emails end up. You're going to do official state government business using an AOL email or a Hotmail? That's not very secure. I'm just saying. Whoever thought that was a good idea, dumb idea. But of course, here comes the hypocrisy about this, right? These same Republicans went after Hillary Clinton for using a private email server. I did too. And she shouldn't have, right? But they said nothing about what they did. And look, nobody in the government should use a private email or a private server. Don't do it. But as I've said, others have used both private emails and private servers. In fact, you had a lot of Bush staffers, including Karl Rove, conducting official business with private email accounts on a server owned and maintained by the RNC, which is a private organization. Private server. And by the way, they lost about 22 million emails. Lost. They were able to recover some, but not all of them. There are some out there that they will never be able to recover these emails. Again, you shouldn't use a private server. Doesn't matter who you are. Now, other Republicans who used a private email address in office were Chris Christie, Scott Walker, Rick Perry, and Marco Rubio. The same people who went after Hillary Clinton for using a private email and a private email server. Now, I'm not saying that this is the same. I'm not trying to create a false equivalence here. There are some of these governors did use both a government email and a private email. And if you do your government stuff on your government email, that is completely fine. Clinton, however, she used one email for both, and that is a big no-no, as I keep having to point out. But of course, another no-no would be using private emails and private servers, which again are less secure and allow you to more easily hide your emails, and that was the whole point. So there's a little bit of hypocrisy on the part of Republicans. Now, the hypocrisy on the part of the Democrats is saying that it's just pointing this out and not admitting that Hillary Clinton using a private server and a private email was a bad thing. So there's enough hypocrisy to go around on this point. Now, there's a little bit more here. Actually, you know what? I pretty much addressed the hypocrisy on this. So, look. While this is not the same, there's this parallel. And the issue here is the same. There's an issue of accountability and security. Now, some of the stuff with both Pence and Clinton was too sensitive to release under the Open Records Act. Okay, with Pence. Yet hackers would be able to penetrate these accounts. And look, we know 100% that hackers did penetrate this account. So what we need to do is we need to rewrite some laws. No more private emails. No more private servers. Let's update our security so that we don't have any more classified information or possible classified information, in the case of Clinton, into the hands of hackers and people that don't have our best interests at heart. Okay. So there's the email. So I'm going to take a quick break and we'll come back. We'll do some Bernie stories.
Hello?
Oh, there we go. Hey, I had a little bit of a tech issue with the volume. You there? Fail. Hold on. Hold on here. There we go. Can you hear me now? Just turn into a Verizon commercial. Caller? Hello? This is awkward. So disaster. All right. Here we go. Let's try this again. Caller, why don't you call me back? I always have an issue with these because I'm using Skype. So. Okay. Here we go. Caller? You're on the air?
Yep, I got you now.
Okay, awesome.
Can you hear me?
Sorry about that. What's your name,
okay.
comment, question?
I go under Alex Ledgerwood on the chat box, so I'm going to stick with that.
Okay.
I have been looking up Michigan and how much is under the control of the Catholic Church, and I have a whole list of places. Mostly the mental health community and the hospitals are run in Michigan by the Catholic Church.
Right.
I was recently put in the hospital after being sent to Common Ground for a comment I made online. And once they found out I was an atheist, it was like they were determined to laugh at me almost, because I started noticing that there were Catholic Bibles laying all around Common Ground that are on all the tables.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't understand how these people are able to have such control over the mental health in this state when they are responsible for 848 Catholic priests being defrocked for raping children.
Well, it's it's a money issue. I mean, Catholic hospitals and Catholic charities, I should say, will donate to hospitals or fund hospitals because there is no more public funding or not enough public funding to fund this. So they go and they fund these hospitals and they create these hospitals and because of privatization, they get more of more control over these hospitals and more control over these private institutions. So that's how they can do it. And you know, going to your child rape question, right? So yeah. What I'm going to say is that if you're connected at all to these and proven to be connected at all to these, you need to go to prison ASAP, gone, no question, right? And they do an investigation, they find people that are connected to this, gone, out of here, right? As anybody else, I mean, if you're a Catholic, that doesn't necessarily mean that you either support rape or are a rapist yourself. So, you know, I'm putting that out there.
Well, I don't understand how an institution that is protecting child pedophiles and rapists should have any say in the mental health of, like, for instance, me. I was a victim of sexual abuse as a child.
I'm sorry.
I do not want those people in control of my mental health care. They're calling me crazy, but they're protecting child raping priests.
Well, there are certain elements within the church that have certainly protected, pedophiles and things like that, and those are disgusting people, no doubt. As you're concerned, I don't like the idea of privatization any more than you do. I think it leads to a disaster. I think it leads to terrible outcomes, and you're right. There are some people in this that do defend predators, and so I'm not in favor at all of Catholic Church. I'm not in favor of any church having so much control over mental health facilities and hospitals. So I'll agree with you there. And, you know, the way that we I guess the thing that we need to do, or the government needs to do, I should say, is to begin funding properly these hospitals and funding these and stop relying so much on private. Again, this is the effect that we're having with privatization on our system, that you can get these groups out there that can go and take so much do so many donations. And look, they do this, by the way, to be able to. I mean, it helps with their charitable giving, right? So they can get the tax write-offs, and so they can basically push their ideology on people that go to their hospitals. Like, for example, in these hospitals, there are rules against having abortion. The doctors won't perform abortions and things like that because that are against their faith. So that's another issue with these privately funded and ran hospitals. So I completely agree with you that this is a disaster, and that we need to do something about it. This is a problem of privatization, and there is a solution: funding public hospitals.
Well, these people have the power to diagnose us as crazy, and they want to show mercy to the pedophile priests. You know, why don't they turn it around and show mercy to the victims and put the priests in the damn hospitals and diagnose them as bipolar and psychotic and sociopaths and whatever label you want to slap on them? I think
I would prefer that they go to prison, but that's me.
Than being bipolar.
I would prefer they go to prison, to be honest with you. You know, if you're a pedophile, if you're hurting children, you know, but I get what you're saying.
The victims like they're crazy. We're not crazy.
Yeah. No, I completely understand, and I know you know, people like my wife deals with people with mental illness. She has mental illness herself. She's got, you know, anxiety, depression. My brother has bipolar. So I know a few things about mental illness myself and how people are treated when they have mental illness. And
are you aware about how easy it is to lock somebody up in the psych ward? My husband went down to the court, told them I don't even know what, and the police showed up and took me to common ground. I mean, it's that easy. The Catholic Church makes it that easy to put people in the psych ward, but refuse to do anything about pedophiles. It's absolutely absurd. Michigan is horrible.
Right.
Anybody needs to avoid the hell out of Michigan because it is run by the Catholic Church.
I don't necessarily think that it's just a problem with Michigan, too. I mean, you have other states. You have Utah. Has a huge Mormon presence as well. And
yeah, you're right.
Generally, any place where there's religion that has religion and privatization. So you have places where you have, you know, a large amount of religious people in the government that are pushing this, you know, that are pushing religious themes and doctrines in control. You're going to have problems like this. You're going to have issues. And so, I mean, got to make it clear that we have a separation between church and state. And
there isn't any here in Michigan.
There should be. There should be, because it's unconstitutional to not have one.
I want to look into the Secular Therapy Project and see if I can find somebody to help me take these pigs on, because I'm sick and tired of them telling me I'm crazy. When they're sick. There is a sickness in the Catholic Church.
Right. And I would say that there's a sickness in all religion at this point. But
well, I can't speak for that because I grew up in Michigan, so I can only speak about what I personally have experienced.
That's true. That's very true. All right. Thank you.
So anyway, thanks for letting me blast on here. I really am trying to spread the word about Michigan, you know, because I know about Michigan.
Hey, I live here too, so I understand. I hear you.
Yeah. I can give you a whole list of Catholic-run facilities if you want them.
I'm sure I can find them pretty easily myself. I mean, it's an issue. It's an issue, and we need to look into it more. Yeah, and I found
proof. Matt said I couldn't prove that Crittenden's a Nazi hospital. Well, I did prove it. It's run by Ascension Health Michigan, faith-based, world's largest Catholic health system.
Wow. All right.
So
thank you, caller.
There's your proof.
Yeah.
Thanks. Have a great day, Jeff.
Well, thank you. You too.
Bye.
Thank you to calling in on that. That's some heavy stuff. I mean, learning what's going on and who's got control of what. And again, we've just got, I mean, this horrible issue with privatization and handing things over to religious institutions. And I absolutely just, it's disgusting what's going on here. And it's all made possible through deregulation, defunding, and privatization. So, all right. Anyway. So we've got a couple more stories that I want to get through, and then we'll take a couple more calls later on. Let's talk some good news. Let's actually do something, you know, let's do something good. In a turnaround vote, Cory Booker has joined Bernie Sanders in supporting a bill that would allow the reimportation of cheaper prescription drugs from Canada. So this is good news. Now, on Tuesday, Cory Booker joined Bernie Sanders at a joint press conference to announce his support of this legislation. Now, I covered his bullshit reasons for not passing this the last time. Oh, the drugs. You don't understand. The drugs from Canada are not safe. Not safe. Oh, really? Why is that? Well, Canada has lower drug standards. Really? Do they? Can you show me? Can you show me anywhere in the Canadian law which actually makes drugs less regulated? Remember, Canada, big government, socialist Canada, at least compared to us, right? They have universal health care there. And they've got lower standards for drugs than we do? Come on, dude. I don't think anybody was buying that. In fact, nobody was. We know that he takes money from pharmaceutical companies. But look, even the money did not prepare Cory Booker for the massive backlash. And you know what? It worked. All the letters, all the calls, all the pressure put on Cory Booker, he won, or we won. Political activism and engagement works. In the end, look, Cory Booker can take all the money he wants, right? But in the end, he still needs your votes. And that's it. See, and the reason that I say that is because the money doesn't actually buy you votes. What the money does is that it buys you ads. But if you're engaged and you're informed, and you can see, you can see past the ads, because that's all they are, glorified commercials. If you know what's actually going on, if you know what they stand for, if you know where they're getting their money, well, you can see past that, the flowery language. See, the ads are only effective on low information voters, people who don't get involved, people who aren't informed of the political process. And see, that's why Cory Booker is doing this. And that's why the progressive resistance against corporate Democrats is actually starting to work. And I know it's hard to believe, it's hard to see, but actually, when you get involved, when you engage, it works. It works. And you know why? It's because without your votes, all the money in the world doesn't do a goddamn thing. As Ryan Grimm of the Huffington Post puts it, Cory Booker's break with the industry at a public event with Sanders is meaningful politically. If the goal of the resistance has been to stiffen the spines of Democrats, well, it's working. And that's because of you guys, you at home. See, look, under President Obama, the left has slept for far too long. Now, not you, not the ones who are watching this video. You already know. You already know. But there are so many people, so many liberal Democrats, or not even Democrats, independents that have that are now woke up to the corruption of our politics, and they are now speaking out. And a lot of it's thanks to Bernie Sanders for waking people up. And now, the politicians, they're being forced to listen. This is democracy, and I love it. And look, Booker isn't the only one that's effective, right? As Ryan Grimm notes, the drug industry is powerful in Pennsylvania as well. And Senator Bob Casey joined Booker on that night, on that late night vote in January to block cheap prescription drugs. Remember, this was something that even Ted Cruz had voted in favor of. That's amazing. Now, since then, the resistance in Pennsylvania to Bob Casey has been fierce, with activists gathering every Tuesday to pressure lawmakers to oppose the Republican corporate agenda. Casey has not been immune, and he faces re-election in 2018 in a state that Donald Trump won with an upset victory. He, too, joined Booker and Sanders to back this bill. So Booker and Casey said, and this is fascinating, they were able to add robust safety provisions to the measure, which eventually won over their support. Likely story, but hey, whatever. I will take it. Way to finally be on the right side of the issue. Now, look, I don't know if this whole legislation is going to pass or not, but even if it doesn't, this is important symbolically. Now, politically, it's smart for Booker. It looks good for him. This guy is probably going to run for in 2020. Mark my words. But again, it looks good for him. It's good politically. It's also good legislation. So it makes sense to be on board. And this is symbolic as well to the power of the progressive movement in the Democratic Party. That energy needs to be sustained. Now, my fear on this is that if the Democrat gets back into office, the left will go back to sleep. That can't happen again. It can't. We have to hold all of our politicians accountable so that in the end, we can get real change. Do not go back to sleep. Continue the resistance. If a Democratic politician does something wrong, call them out. If a Republican politician does something wrong, you call them out. It doesn't matter what party they're a part of. You need to hold them accountable with the same amount of energy that you've shown against Donald Trump. The resistance just isn't against Republicans or Trump. What it is it's against neoliberal pro-corporate policies. And if you fight against those, all politicians notice. Okay. I'm not sure if I should keep this story to minimum wage or the condom company. I do kind of want to have a little fun, but I do also want to encourage another call-in. The number is 989-796-4975 if you want to call into the show. I promise it's working this time. It wasn't working before, but it's working this time. So give me a call, 796-4975. While I try to make a decision on what I want to cover. Let's do the condom story. Let's have a little fun. Let's see. It's probably my favorite story of the day. A British developer is promising to build the world's first smart condom, which will be, according to the manufacturer, the future of wearable bedroom technology. Now get this. This device is called the Icon. I kind of get what you did there. I get it. Now what it is that it's basically a ring device that can be worn on the penis, that can be worn to track different stats. Now, I'll get into the stats here in a minute. Now, the company says that right now it's not actually available, but when it does, it will be sold for about $75. Now, the question is, why pay $75 on a cock ring? That doesn't really make a whole lot of sense, now does it? Well, I think the appeal is, for some dudes, what it does. Now, apparently it tracks speed, average thrust velocity, duration, skin temperature, girth, calories burned, and frequency of sessions. And if that wasn't enough, I think one of the selling points that they're trying to do for dudes is online statistical comparisons. Basically, it'll let you show how you stack up against anybody else who uses this device. This is hilarious. And basically, what it will allow you to do is to check it with an app called Icon. So it's a smartphone app. There's no way that this can't go wrong. This is a bad idea, in my opinion. Now, another feature the Icon is supposed to be able to do is to sense sexually transmitted diseases. Now, look, that could be beneficial, but it also might lead to some embarrassing situations, depending on how they do it. I mean, like, do you check the app and is there some sort of alarm that goes off when you're getting near? Like, warning, warning, herpes detected, herpes detected. Pull out, get out of there, son. I don't know. But seriously, though, there could be a benefit of knowing that there's an STD. Now, thankfully, I'm married, happily, so I don't have to worry about that. But if you're dating or hooking up, I guess I could see the, benefit of it. But of course, the reason that I'm always worried about these devices that get connected to the internet and have cell phone apps is something called privacy. Privacy. We have kind of lost that whole premise, that whole concept. And besides, speaking of privacy, if you're wearing this thing, I'm pretty sure your partner's going to be like, why you keep chucking your cell phone there, buddy? What are you doing? I don't know. Now, on that, British Condoms claims that all data will be kept anonymous. Oh, well, it's not like a company's never had an issue with that things that are supposed to be anonymous not being anonymous anymore. No, it's not like we've ever had that problem. But they also promise that users will have the option to share their recent data if they want to with their friends or the world. Because that's exactly what we fucking need. That's what we need to doing. We need to be doing, man. I'm telling you, man. This is, and I've said this before. Human history has pretty much been full of smart people making wonderful, great discoveries and inventions, and then figuring out how to fuck them. That's essentially what it is. Either you try to figure out how to fuck something, or you use that thing to try to figure out how to fuck better. And apparently this is what this is. And it always seems to come down to that when you're dealing with human beings. You know why? Because we're animals. And in this case, this is hilarious. This device has been referred to as a Fitbit for your dick. I love it. That's great. Look, man, I don't even own a Fitbit. I don't own a normal Fitbit, so I couldn't imagine getting one of these for myself. But what do you think about this invention? Let me know in the comments. Hilarious. All right. Taking your call, 989-796-4975, TYT Nation on Skype. So, and I'm gonna go and I'm gonna read some of these comments here about the icon. Oh, so let's see. Again, 989-796-4975. If not, I've got one more story here. I might save it for Monday, but it's about Governor LePage and minimum wage. Hey, it kind of rhymes. All right, we got a caller. Hey, caller, name, comment, question?
Yeah.
I know who this is.
2 quick points. This is Sean from New York.
I know.
One, you can already tape a Fitbit to your dick.
You could.
And it works perfectly fine.
I've never tried it.
Just get some duct tape and it works.
Okay, I'll take your word for it, man.
And the second one, and the more serious point, is about that Catholic hospital discussion that you had before.
Yeah.
The thing about Catholic hospitals is they weren't previously public hospitals that were privatized.
No, that's true.
It's like most hospitals in this country are usually run by like a church, a charity, a private company, or a university or something like that.
Right. Well, the issue here, though, Sean, is that the reason that there are so many of these privately funded and created hospitals is because there weren't enough public hospitals to begin with to service the need. So that's where privatization comes into it, because what you have is that you don't have enough money for these public institutions and public hospitals, that they have to turn to these private places to be able to get the services that they need. So that's the whole issue there.
That's true.
But you're right.
I do want to say that some, like a lot of Catholic hospitals do great work and all that.
Sure.
But I think the issue really comes in when they accept Medicaid or Medicare, and then you have an issue where the government's funding an organization that makes certain decisions, like on abortion or birth control or whatever, based on their religion. I think that's where you get in the church and state issue.
Yeah. Well, I mean, when you're making those decisions as a Catholic hospital, right? I get that. Then you shouldn't be making those decisions because, again, you do have the right of to get an abortion and stuff like that. So you shouldn't be getting public money and making religious decisions, and that's where it can cross the line of infringing in church and state. So I get that.
And as far as the Bible thing, like there's Bibles everywhere, man. You can't stay in a crappy motel without there being a Bible in there, and that's like not a state organization. And I don't particularly mind like certain institutions offering religious counseling if you're into that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So like that's like a minor component to it. But also I don't think there's a lot of priests like running around grabbing kids at Catholic hospitals. If I'm being perfectly honest, I don't think that's going on.
I don't think that's
A
what
lot.
she's exactly saying either. It's more of like going along with, I mean, some people in certain positions of power covering up these crimes by priests. You know
Well,
what I mean?
right.
And
Well,
not
I mean,
necessarily
the
related to
resigned
the hospital,
Pope
but it's
is
more
one of
related
those.
to the religious structure. Like the structure of the church itself, people that are high up being able to cover up the crimes of lesser sex offenders that are inside of the church. And so
Right.
it's one of those things that the higher ups in the church are covering up for the crimes, and that kind of flows downward in a way.
Right.
Like, where's the culpability?
Particularly when it comes to mental health, like I know from doing research that mental health funding is one of, because they don't have, there's no good like lobbying constituency for mental health funding.
It's true.
So like whatever charity like ends up doing that, I want them to be better than they are, right? But I'm like don't cut them down, because like since the 80s when
Reagan.
federal funding was cut from mental hospitals, like, we've never seen anything come close to replacing that.
Well, here's the thing, right? So, like, I said my wife works for people who are mentally disabled, right?
Right.
And so, I mean, these people are mental, physical disabled as well. So there's like a mix. And she's told me about some of her people that were in her home now that were in previous institutions, right? And I don't know if they were government-run institutions. I don't know if they were privately run institutions, but some of them were abysmal. And
Right.
the United States has had actually a terrible history in creating these institutions, these asylums, or letting them run in their own rules, and these people getting just absolutely treated horribly with inhumane treatment. I mean, having to fight for food, with your other residents and things like that. No, I mean it's whether it's public or private, there is a stain on America and how we've treated the mentally ill.
Right.
So, and that's something that needs to be addressed as well.
Correct. And if you wanna like learn more about this, I recommend you look up your state's ranking on mental health care. The number that always blows me away is the 49th. So the second worst state of the union is Florida. So think about that and all the stories that come out of there.
Yeah, I am not surprised. Actually, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, but people should join organizations that support the mentally ill, because there's like a negative stigma associated with it. And while private funding does come in a lot for like kids with cancer or kids with like autism or like all these different groups, like for whatever reason, mentally ill does not, like it never gets replaced or even close to like replenished when you pull like state funding. And I think that's due to the stigma.
Right. No, you're absolutely right about the stigma. I mean, it still exists vastly to this day, but it was even worse back in the past. I mean, you go back 20, 30 years, 40, 50 years. I mean, we've been terrible to mentally ill people, and there is a lot of stigma, and there is a lot of, I mean, it's almost, and you've talked about this before in a different context, but I kind of want to do a parallel here. It's sort of like the issue of homelessness in a way. You don't want to see them. You don't want to see it. You don't want to admit that it's there, right?
Right.
And so it's an issue of hiding. Now, it's a lot easier to hide mentally ill people who can't fight for themselves in homes, and than it is to hide people who are homeless. So, I mean, this is one of the things that society at large doesn't want to address. They don't want to do anything about it. They don't want to admit that there's a problem here, and there is a huge problem here. And
Right.
you know, we have to figure out some way to address. I don't see anything happening under Trump. Do you?
No, I think mental illness will be on display under Trump, not taken care of.
You might be right about that one.
But
Yeah.
I don't know.
So, you have any
Who
other
knows?
questions?
Like he's weird enough that he might propose something like
Who knows?
out of nowhere. Like you literally never know. He might propose something and then come out against it in the same sentence.
It's possible. You're right about that.
Yeah.
All right,
But
Sean,
as far as the Catholic hospitals, I know they're in a lot of places. They're even in big like liberal cities.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of the hospitals are Catholic, and that's just because like Catholic, Mormons, they have big organizations,
Yeah,
and
they do.
like they do that, and sometimes they do great work.
Yeah.
But like as a country as a whole, like we don't do a lot for the mentally ill. And that's why, like, there's such high percentages of people who are mentally ill that are homeless.
Right.
And
That's true.
like, yeah,
That's
it's definitely about the stigma, but it's also that like a mentally ill and I know this is part of the stigma, but like a kid with like cancer, like that gives you like a visceral reaction.
Yeah.
Like a homeless person with a mental illness, like he's talking to himself. Like people either laugh or they're afraid. So
No,
like
you're
neither
right.
one of those are like that reaction that we need from like humans to like solve a problem.
No, you're right. You're right. Again, there is that visceral reaction of fear. And look, I've experienced that myself, so I understand what you're talking about. I mean, and instead of fear, we need to figure out a way to show compassion to people, because again, that's we're shown that like and told, watch out, those people, they're dangerous, they can hurt you, and in some cases they can, but at the same
Right.
time, that doesn't mean that they don't deserve our empathy, and they don't deserve human dignity and respect, and help, more importantly, help to be able to control that, and to
Correct.
help them be able to live a as much of a normal life as they can.
Right.
And
And like one final point for people like me, I'm libertarian on most issues, but this one in particular, like you look at the data and like you really can't be.
Mm-hmm.
Because we as a society end up paying for this anyway.
Yeah.
Like a lot of prisons, mental
Right.
illness wings are becoming larger than their normal inmate wings, and that's because what happens when you let people who go untreated out onto the streets is
Right.
like they'll end up in prison.
Right.
And like we're supposed to be like it's supposed to be cruel and unusual to put people in prison that are
Right.
mentally incapable of determining whether or not they can commit the crime or not.
Right.
And like we're paying more money to convert prisons into mental hospitals, but like the prison condition itself exacerbates mental illnesses. So like
Right.
it's a big problem. I would way rather just fund I would way rather just fund an institution that is like set up to care for people, and you could determine who's outpatient or inpatient,
Right.
rather than like sending them to prison and then 24/7 you're funding them, and then you have to fund all the extra health care and all that stuff, and then you have
Right.
to protect them from the general population, protect the general population from them. It's a mess. It's a tremendous
You're
mess.
It's a tremendous big league. Believe me. No, you're
So
absolutely right though.
I'll leave you on that note.
Okay.
Thank you for taking my call.
Sure.
And
Anytime,
don't buy
Sean.
this ICOC or Icon or whatever it's called.
Yeah.
Just tape a Fitbit to your dick.
The ICOC. They should have called it that.
It's not called that?
It's icon, not ICOC.
Oh.
But you
Jeez,
might have stumbled.
Icon.
You might have stumbled into something.
I know. I'm a make the competitor.
Yeah. You stumbled
Better
into an ICOC.
file that patent.
Good luck at the patent
All right.
office, though.
All right, later,
All
man.
right. Thanks, Sean.
All right.
Always fun hearing from our good friend Sean. So if you didn't know, Sean used to do TYT Community back in the day with us. So you might find his views. He's always Sometimes we find agreement on a lot of things. He's more libertarian in his beliefs, as he said, but he does his own stuff, videos, so you can check him out. He does this, calls himself the actual justice warrior, which is funny, but so if you want to check him out, go ahead and do that as well. I'm sure, if anything, you'll be entertained. Oh, love you, Sean. All right, that's it. We're a bit over time, but I want to thank the callers that did call in today. Sean, Alex, thank you for calling in. We're gonna save our minimum wage story for Monday, so we can do that. Again, thank you guys for calling in. Thank you guys for watching. For going around the nation with me today. We'll be back tomorrow, next Monday, I should say. We'll be back on Monday, 4 p.m. Eastern. Me and Ron will have a good show for you guys today. Today. It's a Friday, you can tell. But anyway, patreon.com/TYTNation, if you haven't already. And if you can, that would be awesome. Keep us independent. Keep us progressive. Well, we're always going to stay progressive, but keep us independent, at least. Thank you. Love you guys. Have an awesome weekend. We'll see you on Monday. Remember, change begins with you. Good night, TYT Nation.